The sound of my own stomach growling was what finally did it. A low, gurgling complaint in the absolute silence of the house. A sound so ordinary it felt obscene. It was the sound of a body insisting on its existence, its needs, while the world, my world, had decided to ignore them. I stood in the middle of my kitchen, a room I'd cooked 1,000 family meals in, and felt like a ghost haunting a place that no longer remembered how to nourish. Greetings, dear listeners. Before I begin my story, a story of betrayal and how I one day chose myself, I ask you to support this channel. Please subscribe and hit the like button. It helps stories like this be heard. And write in the comments what city or country you are listening from. It always warms my spirit to see how many of us there are. And now, enjoy the story. The front door had slammed shut 3 hours ago, but the heavy, sugary scent of Kendra's perfume still hung in the hallway. Sunset bloom, she called it. To me, it always smelled like the inside of a teenager's makeup bag, sweet, aggressive, and clinging. It fought with the settled, gentle aromas of my home, the beeswax polish on the old banister, the faint, dry whisper of the potpourri in the blue willow bowl, the quiet scent of decades of simmered soups and baked bread that lived deep in the walls of our brownstone. Her fragrance was an announcement, a demand for attention, and then it was gone, leaving only the echo of its insistence. I walked to the pantry. My hand on the old wooden knob was steady, but my heart was a trapped bird. The hinges let out a soft, groaning sigh. I stared inside. The shelves were meticulously organized, wiped clean, and almost entirely bare. A single can of tomatoes, a bag of rice so old the grains had turned brittle and pale, a bottle of olive oil, the golden liquid down to its last inch. She had taken the last of the canned soup, the tuna, the crackers. She'd packed her suitcase with a frantic, joyful energy, humming some pop song under her breath, throwing in bikinis and sandals and floppy hats. I had stood in the doorway of her room, a silent statue of motherly worry. "Mama, relax," she'd said, not looking up from folding a gauzy cover-up. "It's 2 weeks. You'll be fine." "It's just, the check cleared yesterday, Kendra. That's for the utilities, the groceries." She'd straightened then, a flash of impatience crossing her beautiful, sun-capable face. She was 32, but could still look 16 when she pouted. "You always do this. You always make me feel guilty for living my life. I work hard, don't I? I deserve a break." She'd walked over, her expression softening into the wheedling one I knew so well. "Just give me your card, for emergencies. What if my card gets skimmed at some beachside ATM? I'd be stranded. You wouldn't want that, would you?" My fingers had tightened around the little rectangle of plastic. It wasn't just a card. It was my lifeline, my social security, the sum total of my monthly existence. "Kendra, what will I eat?" She'd rolled her eyes, a practiced, dramatic motion. "There's a whole pantry, Mama, and that big jar of grits. You love your grits. A little butter, a little salt. It's simple, wholesome. Honestly, a cleanse might do you good. All that processed stuff isn't healthy at your age." At your age, the words, delivered with such casual superiority, stung. At 68, I suddenly felt 90. "I deserve this," she'd said again, her voice firm, final, and she'd plucked the card from my unresisting fingers. It was done. An hour later, an Uber had purred at the curb, and she was gone, a whirlwind of bright fabric and that cloying perfume, taking my peace, my security, and, as I now saw, my sustenance with her. Grits, right. I reached for the large glass jar on the top shelf, the one with the handwritten label and my own script from what felt like a lifetime ago. The jar was light. I unscrewed the lid and peered inside. A dusting of pale yellow powder coated the bottom, with perhaps 24 individual grains of corn clinging to the glass. Not a meal, a taunt. The cold that moved through me then had nothing to do with the draft from the old window. It was an interior winter, a freeze that started in the marrow of my bones. This wasn't forgetfulness. It wasn't even selfishness, not entirely. It was a kind of casual cruelty, an utter disregard for my well-being so complete it took my breath away. She hadn't even bothered to check. She just said the words to shut me up, to smooth her path to pleasure, leaving me with a ghost of a meal and her good riddance. I placed the jar back on the shelf with a quiet click. The sound was absurdly loud in the ringing silence. I needed to think. Maybe there was cash. Kendra was careless with change. I moved through the dining room, my slippers whispering on the Persian rug, a genuine worn Tabriz my late husband, Martin, had bought for our 20th anniversary. For our feet to be comfortable, he'd said, his eyes crinkling. Her bedroom door was open. Chaos reigned. Discarded outfit options lay strewn across the velvet chair. The air smelled of her, of that perfume and ambition and youth. I felt like an intruder. I went to her dresser, to the little ceramic dish where she tossed her everyday jewelry, empty but for a single lone earring. I checked the nightstand drawer, old lip balms, charging cables, a crumpled receipt for a $65 lunch. My gaze caught on a piece of paper half tucked under her bed, a casualty of her rushed packing. I bent, my knees protesting, and retrieved it. It was a printout, a flight confirmation, and a hotel reservation. I smoothed it on her rumpled duvet. The numbers swam before my tired eyes, but one line held fast, bold and unambiguous. Total charge, $3,847.22. I sat down heavily on the edge of her bed. The floral cotton of her duvet cover was cold beneath me. That number, it was exactly 3 months of my Social Security benefit, 3 months of my life converted into 2 weeks of her sun and sea. I had darned socks until my eyes blurred. I'd learned to remake collars on blouses to make them last another year. I'd said no thank you to coffee with friends to save the $5, all to put her through beauty school, to help with her first apartment, to buy the little extras that said I love you. And she had spent the equivalent of 90 days of my survival on piña coladas and poolside cabanas. I left her room, closing the door firmly behind me, as if I could seal the betrayal inside. The living room awaited, shrouded in the long shadows of late afternoon. This was the good room, the room we never really lived in. My eyes traveled over it, the heavy, carved Victorian sofa no one sat on, the glass-fronted cabinet displaying the full set of Noritake china, the silver tea service on the sideboard, tarnishing quietly in its felt-lined box. Martin's mother's sapphire pendant lay in my jewelry box, waiting for a granddaughter who showed no interest in it. In the hall closet, my mother's milk coat hung, a relic from another era, preserved in mothballs and regret. This wasn't my home. It was a shrine to a future that never arrived, to a family line that seemed to end with a daughter who saw me as an inconvenient curator. I was the guardian of the artifacts, the keeper of the flame, living on grits and guilt so that the things could survive for a someday that was always just over the horizon. My stomach growled again, a sharp, painful contraction. This time, alongside the hunger, a new sensation ignited. It wasn't hot rage. It was a cold, clear, crystalline understanding. This was my life. These were my things, and I was starving in a museum of my own making. I walked to the secretary desk by the window. In the cubbyhole where I kept stamps and coupons, there was a stack of old local newspapers. Kendra hated them. Clutter, Mama, it's just junk. But I was a child of the classifieds. I found the 2-week-old issue of the Gazette and flipped to the back pages. My finger, dry and slightly trembling, found the small boxed advertisement I'd circled in faint pencil weeks ago, an idle thought I'd never dared entertain. Sterling's Antiques and Estates, discreet, fair evaluations, home visits available. We purchase quality silver, porcelain, jewelry, and fine furnishings. Ask for Alistair. The phone on the desk was an old rotary, black and solid as a brick. The dial tone was a steady, demanding hum. I lifted the receiver. The weight of it was familiar, but the action felt revolutionary. Each turn of the dial was a deliberate, grinding choice. Click, 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 click. It rang twice. Sterling's, the voice was a man's, middle-aged, calm, with a slight gravelly texture. I cleared my throat. Hello, my name is Evelyn Clark. I'm calling about your advertisement. Yes, Mrs. Clark. How can I help you? I looked across the room at the silver tea service, gleaming dully in the fading light. I have some sterling, a full service, and perhaps some other items. I'd like to know what they're worth. There was a pause on the line, just a beat. I'd be happy to provide an evaluation. Would tomorrow morning suit, say 10 o'clock? Tomorrow? It was too fast. It was not fast enough. 10 o'clock is perfect, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I'll give you the address. I hung up. The silence rushed back in, but it was different now. It was no longer waiting. It was holding its breath. I was holding mine. I had just invited a stranger in to appraise my prison bars, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt a flicker of something that might have been hope or might have been terror. They felt very much the same. Sleep was a stranger that night. I sat in my armchair, the one truly comfortable chair in the living room, its chintz fabric worn soft by years of my body, and faced the cabinet. The street lamp outside cast a weak orange glow through the lace curtains, painting phantom patterns on the glass behind which the china slept. I didn't feel like a sentinel guarding treasure. I felt like a prisoner taking one last long look at the walls of her cell before she started digging the tunnel. The silver tea service was my grandmother's, brought over from Belfast. It was for special occasions. In my lifetime, those occasions could be counted on one hand: my wedding, Martin's funeral, Kendra's graduation. Each time we'd polished it furiously, used it with careful reverence, and then packed it away again, as if its purpose was not to serve, but to be preserved. For whom? For Kendra, who'd once joked it would look great styled on a modern bar cart in a loft she didn't own. When the doorbell chimed at precisely 10 o'clock, the sound was a scalpel cutting through the thick silence. I smoothed my hands down my simple, clean dress, the one I wore for doctor's appointments, and opened the door. The man on my stoop was not what I expected. I'd pictured someone older, dustier, perhaps with a vest and a magnifying glass. Alistair Sterling was in his late 50s, tall and lean, dressed in crisply pressed khakis and a navy sweater under a tweed jacket. His hair was silvering at the temples, and his eyes, behind thin, wire-framed glasses, were a pale, intelligent blue. He carried a leather briefcase, but it looked more like a diplomat's than a pawnbroker's. Mrs. Clark? Alistair Sterling. A pleasure. His voice was the one from the phone, calm and assessing. He offered a small, neat smile. Mr. Sterling, please come in. I stepped back, feeling acutely aware of the high polish on my old but well-kept floors, the smell of lemon oil, and underneath, the musty dignity of age. He entered, and his gaze did a slow, professional sweep of the foyer, the staircase, the living room beyond. It wasn't greedy, it was analytical. I saw his eyes pause on the pattern in the rug, the cornice molding, the quality of the daylight filtering in. "You have a beautiful home," he said, and it didn't sound like a line. Solid, good bones. "Thank you," I said, leading him into the living room. "It was my husband's family home." He nodded, setting his briefcase on the coffee table. "You mentioned silver?" "Yes." I walked to the sideboard. My hands were steady as I unlocked the glass door and lifted out the heavy, felt-lined box. The latch gave a soft snick. I opened it, revealing the service: the pot, the creamer, the sugar bowl, the tray, all nestled in their custom hollows. The silver was dark with tarnish, a deep, velvety gray-black, but the ornate repoussé work of roses and thorns was still clearly visible. Mr. Sterling put on a pair of white cotton gloves. He lifted the teapot first, not by the handle, but cradling its body. He turned it over, examining the hallmarks on the bottom. He produced a loupe from his pocket and peered through it. The room was so quiet I could hear the faint scratch of his breath. "Belfast, 1898, he murmured, almost to himself. "William Gibson. Very fine craftsmanship." He looked at me. "This is a serious set, Mrs. Clark. Full services from this maker and period are quite rare on the market." He spent the next 15 minutes examining each piece with the same careful reverence. I stood watching, my arms folded tight across my chest. This wasn't just selling a thing, it was dissecting a memory, assigning a dollar value to Christmases past and ghosts of laughter. Finally, he set the last piece down and took off his gloves. "It's in remarkable condition, clearly cherished, rarely used." He paused, his pale eyes meeting mine directly. "The market for grand silver like this is specific but strong. I have clients who would be very interested. I could offer you—" He named a figure. The number hung in the air between us. It was substantial. It represented nearly a year of my Social Security checks, a year of security, of not having to calculate every can of soup. A wave of dizzying relief almost buckled my knees. The old Evelyn, the mother Evelyn, would have clasped her hands and said, "Yes, yes, thank you," and hidden the money away for an emergency, for Kendra, for a someday. But the new Evelyn, the hungry Evelyn, just stared back at him. The lessons of a lifetime of making do, of stretching a dollar until it screamed, of haggling at fabric stalls for my dressmaking clients, rose up in my throat. "That's the scrap value, plus a little for the maker," I said, my voice quiet but clear. "But you're not buying it for scrap. You're buying it to sell to a collector. You said it yourself. It's rare. The felt is original. There's not a single dent. You'll sell it for double that, perhaps triple." Alistair Sterling's eyebrows lifted slightly. A slow, genuine smile touched his lips, changing his entire face. It was a smile of respect, not condescension. "I see. You've done your homework, Mrs. Clark." "Life is homework, Mr. Sterling." He chuckled softly. "Indeed." He leaned back, tapping a finger on his briefcase. "You're correct, of course. My offer was a starting point. A fair dealer's price, as you put it, would be—" He named a new number, 40% higher than the first. My heart was a drum now. "We have a deal." The transaction was swift and professional. He wrote a check, but I asked for cash. He didn't blink, just counted out the bills from a locked compartment in his briefcase. The stack was thick, substantial. I didn't count it in front of him. I trusted the clear, appraising intelligence in his eyes. He packed the silver into his own carrying cases with practiced care. "If you have other items you're considering parting with," he said as he stood to leave, "please don't hesitate to call. The china, for instance." He nodded toward the cabinet. "Noritake's palace pattern, also quite desirable." "I'll keep that in mind," I said, seeing him to the door. When it closed behind him, I was alone again, but the silence was utterly new. It was my silence. In my hand, I clutched the cash. It wasn't just money, it was potential energy. It was choice. I didn't hide it in a coffee can or under the mattress. I put it in my best purse, the leather one Kendra gave me 2 Christmases ago. It's vintage, Mama, very in right now. I put on my coat, not the milk coat, but my own good wool coat, and I walked out of the house. I didn't go to the Dollar Saver Mart. I walked 12 blocks downtown to the Granville Market, a place of gleaming floors, soft lighting, and prices that had always made me catch my breath. Today, I walked through its automatic doors like I belonged there. The smells were an assault of abundance: roasting coffee, yeasty bread from the artisanal bakery, the sweet, high perfume of ripe fruit. I got a woven basket and began to walk the aisles, not with the skittering, anxious eyes of a budget shopper, but with the slow, deliberate gaze of a connoisseur. At the cheese counter, I asked for a taste of the aged Gouda. The young man behind the counter offered a sliver on a little fork. It was complex, nutty, sharp. "I'll take a 1/4 pound," I heard myself say, then pointing to a creamy wedge of brie, "and some of that, please." I went to the butcher. "2 of your bone-in ribeyes, please, thick cut." The marbling was like a snowstorm in the deep red meat. I bought fresh asparagus, so green it looked painted, a container of ruby red strawberries, out of season and obscenely expensive, a loaf of crusty sourdough, still warm, and finally, from a display that looked like a jeweler's case, 2 perfect blushed peaches. They cost more than a whole bag of groceries at my usual store. I placed them gently in my basket. My final stop was the wine section. A kindly older gentleman with a name tag reading Stephen, sommelier, asked if I needed help. "Something to go with a good steak," I said. He recommended a Cabernet Sauvignon from California. "It has boldness but a lovely finish," he said. I took it. The total at the register was a number that would have once made me faint. I paid in cash, the bills passing from my hand to the cashier's with a finality that felt sacred. Back home, I didn't eat in the kitchen. I went to the dining room, the formal, never-used dining room. I took the pristine, embroidered linen tablecloth from the sideboard drawer. I set the table with one of the Noritake place settings, the charger plate, the dinner plate, the soup bowl, the delicate cup and saucer. I used the silver-plated knife and fork from my own everyday set, the ones that were meant to be used. I arranged my food on the plate, the slice of brie, the strawberries, a piece of bread. I uncorked the wine and poured a glass. Then I sat down at the head of the table, in Martin's old chair. The afternoon sun streamed in through the bay window, illuminating the dust motes dancing above the feast. I took a bite of the peach first. The flesh was so juicy it ran down my chin. The flavor was sunshine and sweetness, an echo of summers long gone. I didn't wipe it away. I let it sit there as I cut a piece of the steak, seared it perfectly in my cast iron skillet, and tasted it. It was rich, savory, life-giving. I sipped the wine. It was deep and dark and felt like courage. I ate slowly, savoring every single mouthful. I was not just feeding my body. I was feeding a part of my soul that had been on a starvation diet for decades. I was pouring richness into the hollow places carved out by sacrifice and silence. When I was done, I looked at the empty plate, the smudge of peach juice on the linen. I did not feel guilt. I felt a deep, resonant fullness, a rightness. I cleared my place, washed the single plate and glass, and put them away. Then I went to the sideboard. In the space where the silver service had lain, there was a rectangle of darker felt, protected from the light. I opened my purse and took out the long, detailed receipt from the Granville Market. I smoothed it out and centered it carefully in that empty rectangle. The itemized list Ribeye, brie, strawberries, peach, and Cabernet was my new ledger. I looked at my reflection in the glass of the cabinet superimposed over a receipt. My eyes were clear. "Dinner," I said to the woman in the glass. It was just dinner. And it was the beginning of everything. The week that followed was a lesson in a new kind of quiet. It wasn't the tense, waiting silence of before. It was a spacious, luxurious quiet, filled only with the sounds I chose, the gentle jazz from the old radio in the kitchen, the soft rustle of the newspaper as I actually read it, not just searched its ads, the satisfying clink of my good china as I ate my morning eggs. I had breakfast on the sun porch, watching the world go by. I drank real orange juice, not from concentrate. The simple acts felt revolutionary. The money from the silver was a pool of calm in my bank account. I paid the utilities a month in advance. I bought a new proper pair of walking shoes that didn't hurt my knees. I felt like a plant that had been kept in a dark corner finally wheeled into the light. And then the phone rang. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The ring was jarring, an intrusion from the old world. I knew who it was before I picked up. Only Kendra called with that particular persistent urgency, as if the very act of ringing was an imposition on her time. I set down my book, a novel for pleasure, not just something borrowed from the library's large print section, and walked to the hall table. "Hello? Mama!" Her voice was a burst of static and background noise, waves, wind, distant laughter. "Finally! I've been trying the landline for ages. Don't you check your cell?" "I was reading," I said simply. A short pause, as if my reading was an unexpected and slightly inconvenient hobby. "Whatever. Listen, I just wanted to check in, make sure you haven't burned the house down or something." She laughed, a bright, tinkling sound that held no real warmth. "How's the grits and water diet going? You must be down a dress size by now." I looked through the archway into my dining room, where a vase of fresh tulips I'd bought myself sat on the table. "I'm managing, Kendra." "Oh, don't give me that managing stuff. I know you're probably living on crackers and regret." Her tone was teasing, but the edge was sharp. "Just hang tight. A few more days and I'll be home to sort things out. Maybe I'll even bring you back one of those little umbrellas from my drinks as a souvenir." I could see her so clearly in my mind's eye, lounging on a beach chair, skin glistening with oil, my Social Security check funding her mockery. The cold clarity from the pantry returned, but now it was tempered with a new steely patience. "Don't trouble yourself," I said, my voice even. "I'm finding resources I'd forgotten I had." "Resources?" She barked a laugh. "What, did you find a coupon for 2 cents off canned peas? Or are you bothering Miss Eleanor next door for sugar again? Mama, I told you, that's embarrassing. It makes us look poor." Each word was a small needle, designed to deflate, to control. The old me would have flinched. The new me listened, cataloging the casual cruelty. "I'm not embarrassing anyone, Kendra. Enjoy your pool party." I'd heard the shout of a bartender calling for Cabana 3 in the background. She sighed, a long, suffering sound. "You're so dramatic. Fine, don't tell me. Just try not to do anything foolish. I'll see you soon." The line went dead. I held the receiver for a moment longer, listening to the dial tone. It sounded like a straight line, a path forward. I had planned to call Alistair Sterling about the china cabinet next, but after that conversation, the cabinet seemed too benign, too slow. I wanted something sharper, more personal, a cut, not a sale. I went upstairs to my bedroom, to the small, satin-lined box on my dresser. Inside, nestled like a sleeping animal, was the brooch. It had been my mother's, an Art Nouveau piece, a spray of platinum leaves curling around a single deep blue sapphire. It was the one piece of true heirloom jewelry I owned. Kendra had loved it since she was a girl. "It's so Gatsby, Mama," she'd sigh. She'd borrowed it for job interviews, for dates, always forgetting to return it until I asked. It represented to her a glamour and a status she felt was her birthright. To me, it was a memory of my mother's quiet elegance, something too fine for my simple life. I held it in my palm. The metal was cool, the stone a pool of midnight. I thought of Kendra's voice, "Makes us look poor." This brooch would never make anyone look poor. It would pay for a great many things that would make me feel rich. When Alistair arrived the next morning, punctual as ever, I met him at the door with the brooch in my hand. "A change of plan," I said, leading him in. "The cabinet can wait." His eyes went straight to the jewelry. He took it, his white gloves already on, and moved to the window for the light. He said nothing for a full minute, turning it, holding his loupe to his eye. "My goodness," he breathed finally. "This is a Lalique design, not signed but unmistakable. The workmanship. The stone is a natural sapphire, old cut. This is a museum piece, Mrs. Clark." "What is it worth?" I asked, my heart a steady drumbeat. He named a figure that made the air leave my lungs. It was more than the silver. It was life-changing money. It was freedom money. "It's yours," I said, without haggling. The price was its own justice. He wrote a check this time, the amount so large I insisted on a bank wire, which he arranged efficiently from his phone. As he placed the brooch into a protective pouch, he looked at me. "You're letting go of some remarkable things. May I ask why?" I looked around the living room, at the ghosts of family that felt less like loved ones and more like custodial duties. "I'm tired of tending the altar, Mr. Sterling. I'd rather live in the church." A slow smile of understanding touched his lips. He nodded. A worthy pursuit. After he left, I stood in the center of the empty-feeling room. I should have felt loss. I felt only lightness. I picked up the phone and called the number for La Mer, the French restaurant downtown that Martin had taken me to for our 25th anniversary, the one Kendra said was stuffy and overpriced. "I'd like to place an order for delivery," I told the maitre d', "the coq au vin, the haricots verts, and the tarte tatin, and a bottle of the Sancerre. Yes, to this address." I ate my anniversary meal alone at the dining table, with my mother's sapphire transformed into roasted chicken and white wine. It was the most delicious rebellion I had ever tasted. The next day, fueled by a sense of purpose that was now a quiet fire, I decided to finally organize the bottom drawer of the secretary desk. It was a catch-all for papers Kendra shoved in there, manual for a blender we no longer owned, expired warranties, old birthday cards. As I sorted, my fingers brushed against a thick, slick paper that felt out of place. I pulled it out. It was a brochure, glossy. The cover showed a generic, smiling elderly couple sitting in armchairs by a generic sunny window. "Sunset Haven Assisted Living and Memory Care," it read, "where comfort meets compassion." A cold trickle like ice water dripped down my spine. Sunset Haven. I'd heard of it. Miss Eleanor's friend's sister had gone there. She'd called it the waiting room. Overpriced, understaffed, a place where families deposited problems they no longer wanted to handle. My hands began to shake. This wasn't in my house. This was Kendra's doing. I dug deeper, pushing aside the other papers. My fingers closed on a legal-sized envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a draft document. The heading made my vision blur. Durable Power of Attorney. My name was listed as the principal. Kendra's name was typed as the agent. The powers granted were sweeping: control over all financial accounts, real estate transactions, medical decisions. The effective date was left blank, but scrawled in pencil in the margin, in Kendra's looping handwriting, was a note: "File first week back after trip, assess situation." The room tilted, the walls seemed to pulse inward. This wasn't casual cruelty anymore. This was a blueprint, a cold, calculated plan. She wasn't just spending my money on vacation, she was planning to take the rest of it and me with it. She was going to have me declared incapable, shuffle me off to some haven, sell the brownstone, and live off the proceeds, all while I, doped on whatever pills a facility prescribed, stared at a generic sunny window. The fury that rose in me was absolute, purifying. It burned away the last vestiges of doubt, of maternal guilt. This was war, a silent domestic war for the ownership of my own life. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I placed the brochure and the power of attorney draft back in the drawer, exactly as I found them. Then I picked up the phone. "Mr. Sterling," I said, when he answered. My voice was as calm and cold as the sapphire I'd just sold. "How quickly can you come back with a large van?" The next 2 hours were a study in silent, methodical dismantling. Alistair Sterling returned not with a van, but with 2 polite, efficient young men in clean uniforms and a small, padded moving truck. He took one look at my face, a face I knew was set in grim, unyielding lines, and simply nodded. "The cabinet?" he asked. The cabinet, the clock, the rug, the Noritake service, the walnut occasional tables, the landscape painting in the hall, the Venetian glass mirror, all of it. I listed them off like items on a grocery list. Everything in this room and the dining room that has significant value. Leave me the basics. Leave me my armchair, my reading lamp, my bed. His eyes widened fractionally, but he didn't argue. He became a general, directing his men. "Philip, start with the porcelain, box 212. James, the mirror, careful with the backing." I stood in the archway between the living and dining rooms, a spectator to the evaporation of my past. The men moved with a practiced, respectful care, the clink of china being nestled into custom boxes, the soft thump as the heavy Persian rug was rolled and tied, the groan of wood as the massive dark oak cabinet was disassembled, its glass doors removed like blind eyes. The grandfather clock, which had ticked and chimed through my entire marriage, was laid on its side on a padded dolly, its pendulum stilled. With each item that crossed the threshold, the rooms grew larger, brighter, emptier. The physical weight leaving the house felt like a metaphysical weight lifting from my soul. The stuff had been a demand, a responsibility. Their absence was a promise of space, of air. Alistair worked alongside his team, cataloging, noting condition. At one point, he paused beside me as the painting, a somber Hudson River School landscape Martin's father had loved, was taken down, leaving a stark, bright rectangle on the faded wallpaper. "A radical change of scenery," he remarked quietly, not looking at me. "The scenery was costing me my life," I replied. "I'm redecorating." When the truck was finally loaded, the room stood echoing and skeletal. Sunlight poured in, unfiltered by heavy draperies I'd also told them to take. The beautiful bones of the house were visible for the first time in decades. The original hardwood floors, scarred but glowing, the clean lines of the baseboards. It wasn't a museum anymore. It was a shell waiting to become a home. In my hand, Alistair placed a bank draft. The number on it was astronomical. It was a small fortune. It was more money than I had ever possessed at one time in my life. It was a small fortune. "Are you certain?" he asked one last time, his professional demeanor softened by what might have been concern. "I have never been more certain of anything," I said, folding the draft and slipping it into my pocket. It felt like a talisman. The moment the door closed, I didn't sink into a chair to mourn. I moved. First, I called a premium cleaning service. "I need a deep top-to-bottom clean today. Windows, walls, floors, every surface. I want it to smell of nothing but lemons and bleach." I paid their rush fee without a blink. Then I sat at the now clear dining table with my laptop, a device Kendra had insisted I get, but I rarely used. I navigated to the website of Epicurean Delights, a high-end gourmet delivery service I'd seen advertised in a glossy magazine left in a doctor's office. The interface was sleek, the photographs of food almost painfully beautiful. I began to click. I didn't look at the right-hand column where the totals tallied. I focused on the images, on what my body, my senses craved. Beluga caviar 4-ounce tin, add to cart. Quantity 3. White truffle, Alba, fresh, 2 ounces, add to cart. Foie gras terrine, whole, add to cart. Jamón ibérico de bellota, 16 ounces, add to cart. Aged Parmigiano Reggiano 36-month, wedge, add to cart. Wild morel mushrooms, dried, add to cart. Black Perigord truffle butter. Champagne Dom Perignon 2008, quantity 2. Exotic fruit basket. Dragon fruit, mangosteen, golden berries, passion fruit. I added artisan chocolates, Marcona almonds, stuffed olives, tiny quail's eggs. I filled my digital cart with a bounty so absurd, so luxurious, it felt like a dream or a weapon. The delivery arrived just as the cleaning crew was leaving, the house sparkling and smelling sharply of citrus and purity. 2 men in tailored uniforms wheeled in large wheeled coolers. Their eyes flickered around the nearly empty rooms with professional neutrality. "The refrigerator, please," I directed. We went to the kitchen. My old Kelvinator stood humming loyally in the corner. I opened its door. Inside was spotless, empty save for the little bulb. It had never looked so vast. I said, "Load it." They worked in efficient silence. The tins of caviar with their Cyrillic lettering took their place on the top shelf. The foil-wrapped truffle was nestled in the cheese drawer. The foie gras, a pale, rich block, went beside it. The champagne bottles lay on their sides in the door. The brilliant colors of the exotic fruits filled the crisper. The ham, a deep ruby red, was draped over a porcelain plate. They packed it in, shelf by shelf, until the refrigerator was a dense, breathtaking tapestry of gastronomic wealth. It was full in a way it had never been, not even at Thanksgiving. It strained at the seams with opulence. When they finished, tipped generously, and sent on their way, I stood before the closed refrigerator door. I took a deep breath of the clean, empty house air, then pulled the handle. The light came on, illuminating the silent, chilled treasure within. It was a sight so incongruous with the woman I had been just weeks ago that I almost laughed. This wasn't just food, it was a monument, a declaration. It was every no I'd ever said to myself, transformed into a yes. It was the power of attorney, the Sunset Haven brochure, the empty grits jar, all answered in cold, hard, delicious currency. I closed the door, the latch engaged with a soft, definitive click. The wait began, but it was no longer a wait of dread. It was a wait of grim, settled anticipation. I moved through the spacious, echoing rooms, feeling not loneliness, but sovereignty. I bought new sheets for my bed, high thread count cotton in a pale gray. I bought a single stunning orchid for the dining table. I lived simply amid the emptiness, eating my exquisite small meals, reading, walking in the park. I was gathering strength. The day of Kendra's return dawned bright and clear. I dressed with care in a new pair of soft linen trousers and a simple silk shell, both bought with brooch money. I did my hair. I put on a subtle lipstick. I was not preparing for a battle. I was auroring myself in the dignity she had always tried to strip from me. At noon precisely, I heard the key scrape in the lock. It jarred, then turned uselessly. A pause, then a furious jiggling. I had changed the locks 3 days ago. A fist pounded on the wood. "Mama, the key's stuck!" I finished pouring my cup of Darjeeling, the steam carrying its floral scent, and walked to the door. I unlocked the deadbolt and the new chain and opened it. Kendra stood on the doorstep, flushed and bristling. She was deeply tanned, her hair streaked with blonde from the sun. She wore oversized sunglasses and a breezy, expensive-looking caftan. Behind her was a giant wheeled suitcase and a hangover of airline air and impatience. "Finally! What's wrong with the lock?" she snapped, pushing past me without a greeting, dragging her suitcase over the threshold. She stopped dead. Her head swiveled, the sunglasses sliding down her nose. Her eyes darted around the foyer, into the vast, empty living room. The echo of her suitcase wheels faded into a profound silence. "What?" she started, her voice losing its edge. "What the hell? Where is everything?" She turned to me, confusion etching lines beside her mouth. "Mama, what did you do? Did you move stuff to the basement for cleaning?" "No," I said, closing the door softly. "I sold it." "You sold it?" She repeated the words as if they were in a foreign language. Her gaze swept the room again, landing on the pale rectangles on the walls, the unfaded squares of floor. The reality began to penetrate. The color drained from her tanned face, leaving it a strange, sallow gold. "You sold it? What did you sell? The cabinet? The clock?" Her voice was rising, tightening like a wire. "Everything," I said calmly. "I was hungry." She stared at me, her brain visibly struggling to compute. The equation didn't balance. Penniless old mother plus family heirlooms equals empty living room. The result was impossible. A forced, brittle laugh escaped her. "Okay, very funny. You had a yard sale. You got swindled. We can get it back. Where did you take it? I'm calling the police." She fumbled in her straw tote bag for her phone. "I have bills of sale, Kendra. It was all legal, and I was not swindled." I took a sip of my tea. The prices were quite fair. Her phone paused in her hand. She looked from me, standing there so calmly in my elegant clothes, to the barren room and a new, more terrifying suspicion. Not theft, but agency. Her control was slipping through her fingers like sand. "You're not well," she whispered, her eyes wide. "Oh my God, you're having a breakdown. This is what happens. Senility. You don't know what you're doing." The relief on her face was immediate. This was a narrative she could grasp, a problem she could fix. She took a step towards me, her voice shifting to a cloying managerial tone. "It's okay, Mama. We'll get you help. I'll call Dr. Evans. We'll undo this. But first, I'm jet-lagged and starving. I need food. I know you probably haven't cooked, but maybe there's a—" She didn't finish. She marched past me, towards the kitchen, expecting the usual bleak landscape of an almost empty refrigerator, expecting proof of my incapacity, expecting to find her narrative confirmed. I didn't follow. I stood in the living room, listening. I heard her footsteps enter the kitchen, a pause, then the sound of the refrigerator door being yanked open, and then the scream. It wasn't a scream of fear, but of sheer, uncomprehending shock, a raw animal sound of a worldview shattering. The scream cut off into a choked gasp. I took another slow sip of my tea, the delicate china warm against my fingers, and then walked to the kitchen doorway. Kendra was standing rigid, one hand still clutching the refrigerator door handle, the other pressed over her mouth. Her eyes were bulging, scanning the packed shelves again and again as if they were an optical illusion that would resolve into a jar of pickles and a half-empty bottle of milk. "What is this?" The words were a strangled whisper. She turned her head toward me, her movements jerky. "What did you do?" "I went grocery shopping," I said, leaning against the doorframe. She let go of the door as if it were electrified and took a stumbling step back, her gaze darting from the caviar tins to the truffles to the champagne. "With what? With what money?" Her voice spiraled into a shriek. "This is a fortune. This is thousands of dollars just sitting in here. Did you steal? Did you take out one of those reverse mortgages? Have you lost your mind?" She lunged forward and grabbed a tin of caviar, holding it up like evidence in a courtroom. The cold metal glinted under the kitchen light. Do you know what this costs? This is my car payment. This is a weekend away. She threw it onto the kitchen table where it landed with a heavy thunk and rolled. I didn't flinch. Put it back. It needs to stay cold. Put it back, she echoed, hysterical laughter bubbling under the words. I'm not putting anything back. We are returning all of this right now. You are clearly not competent to handle money. This is proof. She waved a hand at the overflowing fridge, then her eyes narrowed with sudden vicious clarity. The brooch. Where's Grandma's brooch? I said nothing. I just looked at her. Her face went slack with horror. No, you didn't. You didn't sell the Lalique. Tell me you didn't sell the Lalique. When I remained silent, a guttural sound of pure loss tore from her throat. You bitch. That was mine. That was my inheritance. You ate my inheritance. She pointed a trembling finger at the foie gras, the hamon. You consumed it. I was hungry, I repeated, my voice flat. You took my check, you left me nothing, so I got creative. Creative? This is insanity. This is vandalism. She spun around, her caftan flaring, and ran out of the kitchen, her feet pounding through the empty living room toward the stairs. I heard her frantic footsteps above, drawers opening and slamming. She was looking for the jewelry box, for any proof that her future was still intact. I walked to the table, picked up the caviar tin, and placed it back in its precise spot on the refrigerator shelf. I closed the door just as she thundered back down the stairs. She skidded into the kitchen, her face a mask of panic and rage. It's all gone. The silver? The tea service? Sold, I confirmed. The landscape painting, the mirror, the rug, the china. Stop, she screamed, covering her ears like a child. Just stop. You don't understand what you've done. That was our security. That was my safety net. She advanced on me, her finger jabbing the air. You are sick. You need to be protected from yourself. I am calling someone right now. She fumbled her phone from her pocket, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped it. Hello? Yes, 911. I need an ambulance, a psychiatric intervention. My mother, she's elderly. She's had a psychotic break. She's sold off all her possessions. She's hoarding insane amounts of food. She's a danger to herself financially. She listened, rattling off our address, her eyes locked on mine with a terrified, triumphant gleam. Yes, please hurry. She hung up and squared her shoulders. They're coming, and when they get here and they see this, she gestured wildly at the refrigerator, and this, she waved at the empty living room, they'll see I'm right. You'll be taken somewhere safe, and I'll be made your legal guardian, and I will undo every single one of these atrocities. I simply walked past her, back to the living room, and sat in my armchair. I picked up my book. The waiting began anew, but the power had shifted. I could feel her pacing behind me, a caged animal of greed and fury. The doorbell rang 20 minutes later. Kendra sprinted to answer it. In here! She's in here! But the voices that followed were not the official clipped tones of EMTs. They were familiar. Goodness, Kendra, what is all the shouting? The whole building can hear you. It was Miss Eleanor from next door, her voice laced with concern and curiosity. And I was just coming to collect the book we discussed, Mrs. Clark. Alistair Sterling's calm Baroque. Kendra was standing rigid, one hand still clutching the refrigerator door handle, the other pressed over her mouth. Her eyes were bulging, scanning the packed shelves again and again as if they were an optical illusion that would resolve into a jar of pickles and a half-empty bottle of milk. This is a private medical emergency, she insisted, her voice cracking. Nonsense, Miss Eleanor said, gently nudging past her.
She was a spry woman in her 70s with kind eyes and a formidable sense of community gossip. She took in the empty living room, her eyebrows shooting up. "Evelyn, dear, you've been busy." Alistair stepped in behind her, his sharp eyes missing nothing: the empty spaces, the clean lines, Kendra's disheveled fury, my serene posture in the chair. "A dramatic change," he remarked mildly. "They've robbed her," Kendra cried, seizing on a new audience. "Or she's gone senile and given it all away. Look in the kitchen. She's filled the refrigerator with enough food to feed an army. With caviar. She sold my grandmother's brooch for caviar." Miss Eleanor peeked into the kitchen, her hand flying to her chest. "Oh, my stars! Is that real beluga?" "She's not competent," Kendra pleaded, turning to Alistair. You bought things from her. You took advantage of an old woman. I'll have you arrested. The sales are void." Alistair's expression remained impassive. He set his briefcase down, opened it, and pulled out a neat folder. "Miss Johnson, is it? Your mother is one of the most astute businesswomen I've had the pleasure of dealing with. Every transaction was witnessed, documented, and notarized." He extended a sheet of paper to her. "This is a notarized letter from Dr. Anita Sharma, dated last week, stating that after a full evaluation, Mrs. Evelyn Clark is of perfectly sound mind and possesses full testamentary and contractual capacity. We obtained it at her request prior to the major sales." Kendra snatched the paper. Her eyes devoured the lines, the official letterhead, the signature, the notary stamp. The color drained from her face again, leaving her tan looking like a bad spray-on. This is a trick."
"No trick, dear," Miss Eleanor said, her voice losing its kindly edge. She had always been polite to Kendra, but I'd seen the way her mouth tightened when Kendra spoke to me like a servant. "I saw Evelyn last week, bright as a button, telling me she was finally going to enjoy the fruits of her labor, and it looks like she meant it literally." She gave an approving nod toward the kitchen. "But the money, the things, they were for me," Kendra whispered, the foundation of her world crumbling. "From my future." "Your future," I said, speaking for the first time since they'd entered. I closed my book and stood up. "You were so concerned about my future, weren't you, Kendra? So concerned you already picked out a place for me." I walked to the secretary desk, opened the drawer, and pulled out the Sunset Haven brochure and the draft power of attorney. I held them out to her. The silence in the room became absolute. Miss Eleanor's eyes widened in dawning, horrified understanding. Alistair's mouth set in a thin, disapproving line. Kendra stared at the papers in my hand as if they were snakes. That's just planning, responsible planning." "Responsible?" Miss Eleanor's voice was sharp. "Sunset Haven? Evelyn, that's where they found poor Mr. Henderson in a soiled diaper after 12 hours. You were going to put your mother there?" "It was just an option," Kendra cried, but the fight was bleeding out of her, replaced by a frantic, cornered energy. "I was going to take care of everything." "By having me declared incompetent and locking me away," I finished for her. I let the papers fall to the coffee table. "You took my check. You left me to starve. You planned to sell my home and my life out from under me, all while smiling and calling me Mama." I looked at her and I felt nothing. No anger, no hate, just a vast, empty clarity. "You don't get to do that anymore." The sound of a siren, faint at first, then growing louder, pierced the tension. Kendra's head jerked up, a flicker of her earlier triumph returning. "The ambulance, they're here. They'll see. They'll understand." The doorbell rang. Kendra whirled and flung the door open. 2 EMTs, a man and a woman, stood there with a stretcher and a medical kit. "We received a call about a psychiatric emergency?" "Yes, in here, my mother."
Kendra pulled them inside. The EMTs looked around the peaceful, empty living room at the four of us standing there, a distraught, sunburned young woman, a distinguished older gentleman with a briefcase, a concerned neighbor, and me, calm, clean, and collected in my linen trousers. The EMT, her name tag reading Reyes, looked at Kendra. "What seems to be the problem?" "She's sold everything. She's blown a fortune on gourmet food. She's clearly having a manic episode or dementia." EMT Reyes looked at me. "Ma'am, how are you feeling today?" "I feel quite well, thank you. I've recently liquidated some assets I no longer needed and treated myself to a nice meal. My daughter seems to be upset about the menu." The EMT's lips twitched. She looked at the brochure and legal document on the table, then at Kendra's wild eyes. She exchanged a glance with her partner. "Ma'am," she said to Kendra, her tone turning professional and cool, "is your mother currently threatening harm to herself or others? Is she disoriented? Does she know her name, the date, where she is?" "She knows exactly what she's doing. She's doing it to spite me," Kendra wailed. "That's not a medical emergency," the male EMT said quietly. "That's a family dispute." "But the money, the things!" Alistair stepped forward. "Officers, I am an antique dealer. All transactions with Mrs. Clark were legal, witnessed, and preceded by a verified assessment of her mental capacity by a physician." He handed them the notarized letter from Dr. Sharma. EMT Reyes scanned it, then nodded. She looked at Kendra with something akin to pity. "Ma'am, we can't take someone against their will because you don't like how they spend their money, miss, especially when they've been deemed competent." She turned to me. "Are you sure you're okay, ma'am? Do you feel safe?" I looked directly at Kendra. "I will be, once my daughter leaves." The words hung in the air, clean and sharp as a guillotine. "Once my daughter leaves." Kendra's face contorted through a series of emotions: shock, disbelief, raw fury. The EMTs shifted their weight, understanding the situation had just moved from a medical call to a domestic one. "You can't kick me out," Kendra hissed, the last vestige of her performance crumbling into pure, naked threat. "I live here. My stuff is here." "Your things are in your suitcase by the door," I said, nodding to the bag she dragged in. "Everything else you left here is in 2 boxes in the foyer closet. I packed them yesterday. You may take them." She stared at me, her breath coming in short, ragged pants. "This is my home. I'm on the lease." "There is no lease, Kendra. This house is owned outright, by me. And this morning I filed a formal notice of revocation of residency with the county. You are no longer a legal tenant here." I hadn't been idle in my waiting. I'd seen a lawyer, a brisk, no-nonsense woman named Gail, who had handled the paperwork with efficient sympathy. The finality of it, the bureaucratic coldness of revocation of residency, seemed to steal the last of the air from Kendra's lungs. She looked from the EMTs, who were now clearly waiting to see if they were needed to keep the peace, to Miss Eleanor's stern face, to Alistair's impassive one, and finally back to me. She saw no ally, no weak spot, no yielding. "You'll regret this," she whispered, the words thick with venom. "You'll die alone in this empty house, and when you do, I'll contest the will. I'll get it all back." "Perhaps," I said, my voice still quiet, "but you won't get it today, and you won't be waiting for it under my roof." I walked to the hall closet, opened it, and pulled out the 2 cardboard boxes I'd neatly packed with the few belongings of hers that remained: some books, a winter coat, a framed photo of her with friends. I set them beside her suitcase. The EMTs took this as their cue. "Ma'am," Reyes said to Kendra, not unkindly but firmly, "it sounds like you need to find other accommodations. Is there somewhere you can go tonight?" Kendra didn't answer. She was trembling with a rage so complete it seemed to vibrate the air around her. She yanked her suitcase upright, its wheels screeching on the hardwood. She grabbed one box, then glared at the other. Alistair, after a glance at me, silently picked up the second box. "I'll see you out," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. The Miss Eleanor moved to stand beside me, a small, solid pillar of support. We watched as Kendra, back stiff, marched out of her childhood home. Alistair followed with the box. The EMTs gave me one last nod and trailed after them, the crisis evidently averted. The front door closed. This time, the click of the lock was a sound of profound, echoing finality. Miss Eleanor let out a long, slow breath. "Well, I've seen some things in my time, Evelyn, but that takes the cake." She looked at me, her eyes searching my face for cracks. "Are you truly all right, dear?" I realized I was. The adrenaline that had been a steady hum for weeks was fading, leaving behind not exhaustion, but a deep, bone-level calm. "I am, Eleanor. Thank you for being a witness." Didn't do much, but I saw enough. That girl, she had a plan for you, and it wasn't a good one. She patted my arm. "You need anything? You knock on my wall, day or night." After she left, Alistair returned. "She called a ride share. She's gone." He paused. "Mrs. Clark, that was exceptionally handled." "It was necessary," I said. I walked to the window and peered through the lace curtain. Down on the street, a silver car was pulling away from the curb. I watched it until it turned the corner and disappeared. A chapter ending, not with a whimper, but with a slammed car door. I turned back to the empty, sunlit room. Alistair was still there, a quiet, professional presence. "The book you came for," I remembered. "It's on the desk in the study." It was a first edition of To Kill a Mockingbird, one of the last valuable items I'd decided to part with. It had been Martin's. He collected it, writing me a final check. As he prepared to leave, he hesitated at the door. "This is a brave new world you've made for yourself, Evelyn. Empty spaces can be intimidating." I looked around at the clean, open rooms. The ghosts were gone, sold off or banished. All that remained was light and potential and silence that belonged to me. "Empty spaces," I said, "are full of possibility, Mr. Sterling. Thank you for your help." When he was gone, I was truly, completely alone. I stood in the center of the living room and just breathed. The air was mine. The silence was mine. The rest of my life was mine. The words hung in the air, clean and sharp as a guillotine. "Once my daughter leaves." Kendra's face contorted through a series of emotions: shock, disbelief, raw fury. The EMTs shifted their weight, understanding the situation had just moved from a medical call to a domestic one. "You can't kick me out," Kendra hissed, the last vestige of her performance crumbling into pure, naked threat. "I live here. My stuff is here." "Your things are in your suitcase by the door," I said, nodding to the bag she dragged in. "Everything else you left here is in 2 boxes in the foyer closet. I packed them yesterday. You may take them." She stared at me, her breath coming in short, ragged pants. "This is my home. I'm on the lease." "There is no lease, Kendra. This house is owned outright, by me. And this morning I filed a formal notice of revocation of residency with the county. You are no longer a legal tenant here." I hadn't been idle in my waiting. I'd seen a lawyer, a brisk, no-nonsense woman named Gail, who had handled the paperwork with efficient sympathy. The finality of it, the bureaucratic coldness of revocation of residency, seemed to steal the last of the air from Kendra's lungs. She looked from the EMTs, who were now clearly waiting to see if they were needed to keep the peace, to Miss Eleanor's stern face, to Alistair's impassive one, and finally back to me. She saw no ally, no weak spot, no yielding.
"You'll regret this," she whispered, the words thick with venom. "You'll die alone in this empty house, and when you do, I'll contest the will. I'll get it all back." "Perhaps," I said, my voice still quiet, "but you won't get it today, and you won't be waiting for it under my roof." I walked to the hall closet, opened it, and pulled out the 2 cardboard boxes I'd neatly packed with the few belongings of hers that remained: some books, a winter coat, a framed photo of her with friends. I set them beside her suitcase. The EMTs took this as their cue. "Ma'am," Reyes said to Kendra, not unkindly but firmly, "it sounds like you need to find other accommodations. Is there somewhere you can go tonight?" Kendra didn't answer. She was trembling with a rage so complete it seemed to vibrate the air around her. She yanked her suitcase upright, its wheels screeching on the hardwood. She grabbed one box, then glared at the other. Alistair, after a glance at me, silently picked up the second box. "I'll see you out," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. The Miss Eleanor moved to stand beside me, a small, solid pillar of support. We watched as Kendra, back stiff, marched out of her childhood home. Alistair followed with the box. The EMTs gave me one last nod and trailed after them, the crisis evidently averted. The front door closed. This time, the click of the lock was a sound of profound, echoing finality. Miss Eleanor let out a long, slow breath. "Well, I've seen some things in my time, Evelyn, but that takes the cake." She looked at me, her eyes searching my face for cracks. "Are you truly all right, dear?" I realized I was. The adrenaline that had been a steady hum for weeks was fading, leaving behind not exhaustion, but a deep, bone-level calm. "I am, Eleanor. Thank you for being a witness." "Huh. Didn't do much, but I saw enough. That girl, she had a plan for you, and it wasn't a good one." She patted my arm. "You need anything, you knock on my wall, day or night." After she left, Alistair returned. "She called a ride share. She's gone." He paused. "Mrs. Clark, that was exceptionally handled." "It was necessary," I said. I walked to the window and peered through the lace curtain. Down on the street, a silver car was pulling away from the curb. I watched it until it turned the corner and disappeared. A chapter ending, not with a whimper, but with a slammed car door. I turned back to the empty, sunlit room. Alistair was still there, a quiet, professional presence. "The book you came for," I remembered. "It's on the desk in the study." It was a first edition of To Kill a Mockingbird, one of the last valuable items I'd decided to part with. It had been Martin's. He collected it, writing me a final check. As he prepared to leave, he hesitated at the door. "This is a brave new world you've made for yourself, Evelyn. Empty spaces can be intimidating." I looked around at the clean, open rooms. The ghosts were gone, sold off or banished. All that remained was light and potential and silence that belonged to me. "Empty spaces," I said, "are full of possibility, Mr. Sterling. Thank you for your help." When he was gone, I was truly, completely alone. I stood in the center of the living room and just breathed. The air was mine. The silence was mine. The rest of my life was mine. I didn't celebrate that night with caviar or champagne. I made a simple omelet with fresh chives, ate it on a tray in my armchair, and watched the moon rise over the rooftops. The simplicity felt like a different kind of luxury. The weeks that followed were a process of creation. I didn't rush to fill the spaces. I lived with the emptiness, learned its contours. I sold the brownstone. It was too big, too full of echoes. The money from the sale, combined with my existing funds, was more than enough for a comfortable, secure future. I bought a small, modern condo in a nice building downtown. It had huge windows, a balcony, and no history. I furnished it slowly, intentionally. A single, perfect sofa in dove gray, a beautiful, functional oak dining table with just 2 chairs, artwork that I loved, a vibrant, abstract painting in blues and golds, nothing somber or heirloom. I kept only a handful of personal, meaningful things: my wedding photo, Martin's watch, a quilt my own mother had made. One afternoon, a glossy brochure arrived in my new mailbox. Not Sunset Haven. This one showed snow-capped mountains and steaming hot springs. Alpine Serenity Spa and Retreat. A month-long wellness package for seniors. I booked it that same day. The day before my departure, I was on my balcony, wrapped in a new cashmere wrap the color of sunrise, drinking coffee and watching the city wake up. A sense of profound well-being settled over me. I was no longer waiting for my life to happen or for someone else to dictate its terms. I was living it, bite by intentional bite. My phone buzzed on the small table beside me, an unknown number, but with a local area code. A part of me knew. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Hello? Mama. Kendra's voice was different, stripped of its performative brightness, its wheedling edge. It sounded thin, tired. I got your new address from the lawyer. She said you moved. I did. A long pause. I could hear traffic in the background, the sound of a life less anchored. I need to talk to you. I'm listening. Not on the phone, in person, please. The please was strained, foreign on her tongue. I sipped my coffee. The autumn air was crisp and sweet. Why? Another pause, heavier. I made a mistake. A lot of mistakes. Things are hard. The room I'm in is awful. My job, it doesn't pay enough. I realize now what I had. Her voice cracked, a calculated break or a genuine one, I couldn't tell. I miss you. I miss home. I looked out over my new view, at the life I had built from the ashes of the one she tried to discard. I felt no schadenfreude, no pleasure in her struggle, but I felt no pull either, no maternal cord tugging me back into the old dynamic. Home is gone, Kendra, I said, my voice gentle but unyielding. I've sold it. I live somewhere else now. Then can I come there? Just to talk. You're my mother. You have to forgive me. There it was, the core belief, the final card she thought she could always play. You have to. I don't have to do anything, I said, the gentleness hardening into diamond clarity. I am your mother, and I will always love the little girl you were, but I do not have to fund your life. I do not have to tolerate your cruelty. I do not have to offer you a seat at a table you tried to break. Silence on the line, stunned and absolute. I am leaving tomorrow for a retreat. I will be unreachable for a month. After that, if you wish to have a relationship with me, it will be on entirely new terms, as 2 adults. You will need to get your own life in order without any expectation from me. You will need to show me over a very long time that you are capable of kindness and respect. That is the only thing I will accept. You're really leaving me with nothing? The disbelief was tinged with a dawning, terrifying understanding. I am leaving you with exactly what you left me with, a choice, and the consequences of your own actions. Goodbye, Kendra. I ended the call. I didn't block the number. I simply placed the phone back on the table. The sun was higher now, warm on my face. I finished my coffee, the rich, dark flavor a testament to my own chosen pleasures. I had not forgiven her. Perhaps one day I might, but forgiveness, I had learned, was not the same as reconciliation. It was not a key she could use to re-enter the kingdom she tried to plunder.
Forgiveness was something I would do for myself when I was ready to set down the last of the weight. It had nothing to do with her. I went inside to pack for my trip. I folded the new cashmere wrap beside a simple, elegant swimsuit. I was going to soak in hot springs and breathe mountain air. I was going to live. And so, dear listeners, that is where my story rests. Not on a dramatic confrontation or a tearful reunion, but on a quiet balcony with a cup of coffee and a boundary made of something stronger than steel. Some of you may be thinking, but she is your daughter. How could you turn her away? I understand that thought. For most of my life, I believed a mother's love was an endless well, a bottomless resource meant to be drawn from no matter how deep the bucket went. I believed my purpose was to sacrifice until there was nothing left of me, and that this vanishing act was the highest form of love. It is not. Love should not be a slow suicide. It should not require the erasure of the self. What I finally understood, standing in that empty pantry, was that I had not been loving my daughter. I had been enabling her. I had been teaching her that my needs were irrelevant, that my comfort was negotiable, that my very survival was secondary to her whims. In doing so, I had failed us both. I had created a monster of entitlement, and I had become a ghost of a woman. My story is not one of revenge, though I know the image of that full refrigerator felt like it in the moment. It was an act of reclamation. I was taking back the most fundamental right any of us has, the right to care for our own life. I sold the silver not to spite her, but to feed myself. I sold the brooch not to destroy her inheritance, but to buy my own freedom. I emptied the house not to leave her with nothing, but to finally make space for myself. The greatest lesson I learned in my 7th decade is this: you cannot pour from an empty cup. And for years, my cup wasn't just empty, it was bone dry, cracked, and collecting dust in a museum no one visited. I had to choose to fill it for myself. With good food, with peace, with dignity, with the courage to say no to those who would drink it all and ask for more. As for Kendra, I do not know what the future holds. The door to a relationship is not locked, but it is very, very heavy. It opens only to mutual respect, and she has a long road to walk to learn what that word means. My love for her is no longer a blanket that smothers me. It is a distant light I can observe without burning myself. Whether she chooses to walk toward that light or further into her own darkness is a path she must now forge alone. So I ask you, my dear friends listening in your kitchens, your cars, your quiet rooms, where in your life are you starving in a museum of your own making? What precious things, your time, your energy, your joy, are you keeping behind glass for a future that isn't guaranteed, for people who may not value them? Where have you confused sacrifice with love and emptiness with virtue? Could you do what I did? Could you choose yourself even if it meant the world would call you selfish or cruel or crazy? Your life is not a dowry for someone else's future. It is your one and only masterpiece. Do not leave it unsigned. Do not leave it unframed. And for heaven's sake, do not leave it hungry. If this story resonated with you, if it touched a place where you have also felt the pinch of silent sacrifice, please let me know. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me what city or country you are listening from. It truly does connect us, makes this big world feel like a shared living room. And if you believe in stories that speak hard truths with a gentle voice, please support this channel. Subscribe, hit the like button, share this with someone who might need to hear it. Your support allows these voices, these lessons, to travel further. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this circle of reflection and strength. Remember, your peace is not a price to be paid for someone else's happiness. It is the very foundation upon which all real love is built. Be gentle with yourselves, dear ones. Until next time.